You're listening to Sarah Hagan Backstage, with interviews and insights from years inside the music industry. Join Sarah as she talks with masters of their crafts, finding out what makes them tick, both inside and outside of the music business.
Welcome to Sarah Hagan Backstage. My guest today, Dennis Chambers, is not only one of my personal favorite drummers of all time, but he's also one of my favorite people of all time. I get to catch up with Dennis today about playing with some incredible musicians over the years, including Santana, Parliament Funkadelic, Mike Stern, the list goes on and on. And we will also talk about some fun stories from his past and revisit some of his really great solos. So come along with me as I catch up with the one and only, the legendary Dennis Chambers. Dennis Chambers, welcome to the podcast.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm doing fine. I'm doing fine. Just suffering with a little high blood pressure problem here, but I'm doing okay.
Well, you look fantastic, and it's so good to see you.
You look great yourself.
Thank you.
I miss you, by the way.
Oh, I miss you too. I know this is a holdover until we get to see each other. So, it'll be a consolation. But it's been a while since I've seen you, and you just look so healthy, and I'm so happy about that.
Yeah, I feel great. Actually, I feel better than I felt in the last 18 years.
Wow, that is incredible.
Yeah, sounds strange, but yeah, I'm amazed at what a liver transplant can do, and how bad my liver was damaged and didn't know it in all those years.
Right. For anyone who's listening who doesn't know, Dennis went through a liver transplant, and that was was that October time?
October, yeah.
October.
Okay.
And after dealing with some health issues for a little bit, and then it was time, right? And it was a pretty quick process from what I remember.
Yeah, I healed pretty quickly.
Amazing. And you and I have this history of me calling you and finding you in the hospital, which we need to stop. So we going way back to health situation that you went through years back. I just remember you were in the hospital for quite a while. I think we were all really, really super concerned about how things were going to turn out. You were actually in a coma for a bit. Yeah. And I remember getting a phone call from you. I just have to talk about this because it was so significant, but I had left you a voicemail because we didn't know what was going to happen. And we were all so worried about you. I left you a voicemail and just telling you how much I loved you and just like sending the best healing wishes. And I got a phone call back from a number that I didn't recognize. I answered the phone and it was you. And you sounded hoarse, but it was you. Like it was your voice. It was Dennis. And I just remember that getting that phone call and thinking like, I can't even believe I'm talking to you right now. You were calling me from the hospital. You had basically just woken up from your coma and you made the most miraculous recovery. And got back out there. The first clinic tour, I think that we did together, was just like it. Yeah, like it was like it never happened. It was just amazing.
Yeah. That was some interesting times for me.
Right.
I never want to see another hospital, although I still go in every now and then for my checkups. But
good. That's good. But I just have to say, you've been through so much, and you are like the toughest guy, of course. And every time I see you after you've gone through something, and you look so great, and I'm really, really happy. So keep on doing what you're doing, and we'll get lots more musical moments together, I'm sure. So let me know, besides going through a liver transplant in the middle of the pandemic, how was everything for you? I know you were dealing with a lot over the past year, through the quarantine and all of that. How were you through all of that?
Well, I mean, I guess I've been very blessed and also smart enough to save some things when I was able to, so that got me through all of this so far.
Hmm.
And just being blessed to have friends that prayed and prayed and prayed for my recovery, and constantly, in contact with my friends and stuff. Sometimes it was overwhelming, to keep up with all the emails and the texts and the phone calls and stuff.
Hmm.
It just made me aware that people love me, and and uh, and thanks for their prayers, and thanks for my wife who kept me alive. My wife is basically, just kept me going. You know, Especially
Absolutely.
now that I mean, she was there the next day after my mishaps, being in the hospital in a coma. And when she got on the plane, before she got on the plane, she didn't know whether she was going to pick up a body or a husband,
Hmm.
a live husband or a dead one. Um, and it was because of people what started the rumors went so freaking quick. Uh,
Yeah.
you know, it was reported that I had died, and um, she got wind of it. Of course, she was getting phone calls that people sending their condolences and all that stuff, and she dealt with all of that. And I found out she was on the plane the next day. In fact, that next morning she was on the plane. Coming,
Yeah.
what's going on. And when she got to the hospital, I was laying up in a coma, so I didn't even know. When I came out of the coma, when the doctors were testing my memory, she was in the room. I didn't know she was in the room. She was
Wow.
just sitting there quiet, just watching me going through what I was going through with the doctors, and she was been there ever since.
She is amazing. And I just said, how tough you are. And your wife is really tough too, to have dealt with all of that. And I remember when you were going through that years back, she made a great statement, just to kind of like quell the talk and the rumors. I can't imagine how tough it was for her to be dealing with all of this and then getting condolences. And she's saying, like, you know, Dennis is still alive. He's still here. He's still fighting, So yeah, so kudos to your wife, and you guys make a great team. And but so you are, you're looking great, and you are going to be heading back out, which is amazing. The last time we talked, I know it's tough because not everything's set in stone now and things change. Um, but you have some things on the horizon, which is great.
Yeah, I mean, let me see. I'm doing a clinic in Chicago on the 31st. I can't recall the name of it though right now, because I've been sitting here learning all the like recordings, um, or music for for a recording date I have to do coming up soon. Well, I got
Mhm.
2 or 3 of them coming up soon. I can't recall the name of the clinic. I know it's in Chicago.
Okay, perfect. I'll find it and I'll link it in the YouTube bio so that people can check it out.
Yeah.
The YouTube description. Um, but no, that's so great. And I think that everyone getting back out there is just, it's inspiring, it's exciting. Hopefully we get through whatever happens, with the variants happening in the US, and causing some things to be paused, but fingers crossed that things move forward quickly, because we all need the music to come back, the live music, and clinics and things like that. So that's super exciting, Dennis.
Yeah, it's weird. It's like right now I have a schedule full of maybes,
Yeah, right.
tours, and I'm quite sure everybody's pretty much going through the same thing. Now I got some friends that are in Europe right now, um, and they're telling me how things are going. Going into all these different countries and cities and things like that. They have to get tested every 2 days.
Wow.
Because there's no alliance through the whole part of Europe. Each country treating treating this epidemic differently. So,
Mhm.
um, so I can't even imagine, touring enough. I mean, just touring enough is crazy.
Mhm.
Like getting up at the crack of dawn. Especially when you get back to your hotel, like out, somewhere around 1:32 in the morning, and then you got to, prepare yourself for the next morning or that morning, actually. You take a shower, you pack your bag, have your bag at the door, set your alarm, sleep for 2 or 3 hours, get up, get on go downstairs, check out, go through,
Yep. Do it
the
all again.
transport, going to the freaking the airports. And it's in Europe, it's never a direct flight going anywhere. So
Mhm.
it's got to make a connecting flight somewhere. And then, the plane's not on time. Get to your final destination city. Now you're at the airport. Now you got to get a cab or some kind of transport that pick you up, take you to the hotel, take a quick shower, get out the door to do the sound check. Get some food,
Mhm.
go back to the gig, do the gig, get back to the hotel like 2 in the morning, and now you have to do these tests
Right.
2 days, which means you got
Right.
a place, or if they do it at the airport, I'm not sure. But you got to find a place, get the test
Mhm.
before you get on the plane, or when you
Right. And then you have to think, then what happens? So what happens if someone does test positive and, it's a little bit of a scary prospect, I think. I mean, at some point it will have to be like, this virus will have to be treated as other viruses are, hopefully when people are vaccinated and there's, they talk about the herd immunity and all of that, but um not that I am a medical professional, just hopeful that things can get to a point where we can kind of live a semi-normal existence and go about our business.
yeah, I just wish that uh, everybody go ahead and just get the shot, because I never forget the first time I saw a person that had that or that caught it while I was in the hospital, or
Mhm.
seeing them bringing them in.
Mhm.
The guy was in a glass, like I'm sorry, like a plastic bubble,
Right.
like on a gurney or
Like an
something.
isolation.
Yeah, and they bring
Yeah.
him in, and he's got oxygen, up his nose, and the guy he looked like he's flopping like a fish out of water.
Mm.
He can't breathe.
Mhm.
And then come to find out that this guy's lungs were crystallizing.
That is
So seeing that, like, um, I mean, I wish people would, stop thinking about, the government conspiracies and, I mean, okay, things have happened in history
Mhm.
about government, as far as doing certain things to people with these testings and all that kind of crap. But
Sure.
but this don't have anything to do with this. This epidemic. It's not a black, white. This thing is hitting everybody. Mexican. It don't have any names. It don't have any skin color to it. It's just taking people. And the scientists is like the scientists. All they're trying to do is just they're trying to get you to get this vaccine so you can have enough in your immune system to fight it.
Absolutely.
And people who get the shots, they have to be smart enough to know just because you got the shot, that don't necessarily mean you don't have to wear your mask,
Mhm.
especially with these new variants out there.
Right.
I was just talking to my doctor 3 or 4 days ago, and she's telling me, and she's from India, and she was telling me her father, got the shot, and he don't go anywhere. In fact, he had food delivered, he
Mhm.
had groceries delivered and all that stuff. And all he do is just get up. He goes, to the rooftop of his building, get some sun, get a little workout, and he goes back
Mhm.
to his place. He got hit, and then my doctor is telling me the variant over there, they think it's airborne.
Right.
So, and I think there's few cases of it here already.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. You can't be too careful, I don't think, with this. And at this point, we can just put a public service announcement out there. Get your vaccine, please. We all want to get back to life, right? And also to protect the people who need to be protected. And right now, it's the kids, right, who can't get the vaccine. So let's let's get our vaccines and protect the kids right now who wore their masks and did what they had to do to protect their elders through the beginning of this. So let's get the vaccine, protect the kids. Hopefully kids can be vaccinated soon. I know the testing is ongoing, so fingers crossed. And but yeah, I think one thing through this whole thing has been how we think about other people. Whether you are immune compromised or not, whether you are high risk or not, thinking about the people who are and protecting them because it's the right thing to do. So that's how I feel about that.
No, you're absolutely
Um,
right. You're absolutely right. Look, when the flu broke out, they found a somewhat of something to fight it. So if you don't want to get a flu, you get a shot. That,
mhm.
that don't necessarily mean just because you got the shot you won't get it.
Yes,
If you get it, at least you have a fighting chance. Your immune system is strong enough to fight it at least
absolutely.
instead of killing you. Well, it's the same thing with this medicine here.
Yeah, and you and I have mutual friends. You have plenty of friends and family, and same with me, who have either had a really hard time with this virus or passed away. Um, and that's for anyone who hasn't had that experience. You're very lucky that that hasn't happened, but to watch someone that you love or your friend go through this or deal with their family or friends suffering, it's really difficult. A lot of people, not only in the music industry, had their jobs seriously affected by the virus, but have lost people. And I think it's important just to recognize that. But we are hopeful that we're on the other side of this in a lot of ways. And if we can just everyone do their part, do what we need to do, we'll make it through.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm excited for you to get back out there, Dennis. I'm psyched that you have a clinic coming up and all those maybe dates that that will happen sooner or later. And I just kind of want to go back in time a little bit with you and talk about your start in music. And there are a couple of stories that I love that you've told me over the years. So I just want to share those with the listeners. One being way back in the very early Dennis days, how you got your name, if you don't mind talking about that, because I love this.
First of all, my name is Milton Chambers. Let's start it there. And I was a menace when I was a kid. I used to do things to the neighborhood kids that I got a lot of beatings for. Always instigating things. Always, some kids got hurt. Messing around with me. I remember my cousin Bobby used to come to the house and hang out, and he'd go home with a broken arm.
Oh no, not on purpose, right?
No,
Nothing
no,
on
no, it wasn't
purpose.
on
No.
purpose, but it was just some joke I had played, and the joke went wrong and all that stuff. So they started calling me Dennis, Dennis the Menace, because I was a menace. Sadly to say,
Hmm. I love it.
without going
And
through any more detail.
no, that's okay. But it stuck with you. And a lot of people don't know that you were born, your given name was Milton Chambers, but I love it. And one of the funny things was way back in the day when I would do clinic tours, book clinic tours, and your flights, and we needed to book your, have your legal name on your flights. When I first heard your name, I was like, who is Milton Chambers? Who is this? And then also you would book hotel rooms under different names. I mean, we don't have to talk about those names, but that always cracked me up too. I'll use this name or call Dennis at this hotel, but he's not under Dennis. He's under this name. And okay, like way back in the day, you know.
Yeah, yeah, because people, you know, we got a lot of drum nuts in the world. And you know, like you go to like if you go like certain countries, you know, like especially in South America, you know, you got people that will call, you know, every hotel in the vicinity
Hmm.
or in town. They'll just call every hotel to find, you know, try to find you.
Yeah.
So that's when you have to like, you know, change names. You know, all
Right.
rock guys do it. You know, like I remember some guy's name was uh, Crowd Black Man. You know, which was funny. It was like coming up with these funny names. Gomer Pyle. I think I
Yes.
used that once.
Gomer Pyle. I remember I sent something to you. I sent a package to a hotel addressed to Gomer Pyle. I do remember that.
Mr. Shifley. It was all kind of strange names we had.
You had to do it, right? I mean, and you know, talking about like the drum fans, you are a superstar. You know, you're a superstar musician, but in the drumming world in particular, um, you're a legend. And I just have to say, I pay tribute to you a bit personally, but when people ask me why I started playing or who my influencers were back in the day. You're at the very top. And I remember seeing the Zildjian Days video from London, right? London Zildjian Days. And it was, I had seen you play before, but there was something about that performance that just struck me. And I was like, I need to play drums. I have to play more drums all the time. And it just kind of like launched me into being, you know, having that be my number one thing that I would do. Um, and so I met you the first time I met you. I was 17 years old, I think, and you were playing with Mike Stern at the Regatta Bar. And I came with John DeChristopher and Colin Schofield from back in the day at Zildjian.
You were
And
17?
what was that?
You were 17?
I was 17. Yes. Yes. And you know, I worked at a cafe near Zildjian going through high school, and the Zildjian employees would come into that cafe, and I got to know them. And then they said, well, I think at one point, who's your favorite drummer? And I said, Dennis Chambers. So then they remembered that when you were coming to town, and they said, well, come to the show and you come a little early and meet us, and we'll make sure that you meet him, which was so sweet. I mean, like amazing to do that. And so I did, I came early, and I just remember you were wearing this like incredible, it was like a gold lame outfit, like total Dennis Chambers. I'll have to find a picture or something. But you came down the hall singing, and you were so gracious, and it was just so nice to meet you. And then to sit and watch you play with Mike Stern, I was just blown away, of course. But that was my first time meeting you, and it's so funny because over the years getting to know you, um, you know, you've always been that gracious like person to people who are fans of your music. And you know, for you to come out and say hi ahead of the show, and you know, and entertain this like, you know, kid drummer who was just like, Dennis, you know, it's great. But then like getting to know you on the professional level was so amazing too, and then becoming friends. And um you know, over the years has just been wonderful. So that's my tribute to you, Dennis.
Well, I thank you very much. I remember, I kind of remember meeting you back then in those days. But
Yeah.
stuff was going on around me. You know, worried about the music, worried about my drums. I think I had drums de jour on that tour.
Oh yes.
You know, and the only thing was consistent was my cymbals. You know, because I brought my own cymbals back then, cymbals and sticks and pedals. But the drums, I was, you know, my mind focus was on music and on those drums.
Hmm.
Those drums going to hold up, or what those drums are going to do later on in that performance. was everything tight down, or all that stuff, because I was setting up my own drums at that time
Mm-hmm.
with Stern. Well, halfway set them up. The other half was set up by the tech, and I had to worry about what the tech had done, because sometimes, I would sit there at the drum kit, and I'll find myself thinking like, why is the drum kit getting bigger? Come to find out, he didn't tighten the stool up, the throne, and I'm sliding down, looking up at.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, the joys of being on the road with sometimes rental gear, right?
Yeah.
Um, absolutely. But you know what? I think one of the things that you said to me back in the day, because at these different clinics we would go to, you just never knew what you would get. You'd show up to do a clinic date, and the drums might be what the store had in stock, or kind of close to your requirements. And I remember you saying to me at one of those clinic dates, you just have to make it work, right? Like, and you did. You always sat down and made it happen.
Yeah. Yeah. I was never, a stickler about gear or anything like that. I mean, I make my list and tell them what I want, but if some guys don't read the manifest, of the what you need, they just give you whatever. So no matter what, the clinic or the show have to go on. So
Hmm.
as long as I have a kick drum, snare drum, and a floor tom or a rack tom, we can make it work.
Right. Yeah. You can make it work.
Yeah.
I do remember one thing on your rider that I always had to clarify with people, because they'd see it and be like, I don't think that's right. I think that's a typo. But no, that's what you wanted. It was your hi-hats. You, for quite a while, and I don't know if this is still your preference, but 13-inch A custom, or 13-inch A Zildjian Master Sound bottoms, two of them together. That was your preference for hi-hats, but it was such an unusual request that a lot of people would say, "Oh, I don't think that's what he actually meant," or "I think that's a typo."
Yeah, that was something I got from Armin. Armin approached me one day and go like, kid, you need to check this out. And I'm like, well, there's two bottoms. And yeah, check it out. So I checked it out and I was like, wow, yeah, I got something here. And I'm thankful that he had recommended it.
That's
And
fantastic.
I still
Yes.
use it right to this day.
Such a creative mind he was, for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
Um,
I
and
miss
there's
him.
actually,
I really miss him. I mean, this guy was like every time you were around him, the guy was just a lot of fun, and he was like like this old guy with a kid's with a kid, with a kid mind. It's like it was just young.
mm,
Always just cracking jokes. But when he was serious, he was dead. He was really serious. But
absolutely. Yeah. So we're talking about Armin Zildjian, who was the owner of Zildjian cymbals for decades. It passed on in 2003, but what an impression he left on all of us. Actually, if I move a little bit, there's a signed cymbal behind me from Armin. Um, from way back in those days when I was at that cafe, actually. And he used to come in for lunch and made such an impression on me. But you're right, like, young at heart, and treated everybody like they were incredibly important, And so, yeah, left that impression on me for sure. And my time at Zildjian, I always had that in the back of my mind, to carry that on, make sure that I was carrying on his work.
yeah,
And yeah, so I love that. I loved his creativity, and his relationships with you all too. So
yeah.
great.
Like I said, I really miss him.
Yeah.
Sometimes I sit around and I think about some of the trips, running into him or to them, Andy and Armin, and
Hmm.
Russia, of all places.
In Russia?
Yeah,
Oh, that's so great. Yeah, and that was the thing too. No matter where he was, he would always go out and see music, right? He was a fan of music.
yeah. I mean, one time I was playing somewhere, and I forgot what country that was. Argentina. We were in Argentina, and it was an outdoor gig, and I look out, and there he is, Armin, sitting there. What are you doing here? You know?
That's so fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, so such a great support system. And his name came up last night actually in another conversation. And I feel like we say that we miss him and his presence, but like his presence is so here. Like it's so he's still here, the spirit that he left behind. So that's such a beautiful thing. If we could all leave that behind, that would be like such a legacy.
Yeah. I tell you, everybody who I talked to that came through Zildjian, the conversations always end up on Armin and Lenny.
Mhm.
Armin and Lenny.
Yeah, yes, the team. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, Lenny's name came up last night too. So and let's Lenny DiMuzio for anyone who's listening who was AR at Zildjian for years and years. And he and Armand really kind of like created that whole program together.
Yeah.
Right. Bringing in top drummers and well, who was it that actually signed you, Dennis? Was that Lenny?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I forgot there was a gentleman there that saw me. I went to see Chester Thompson play at a clinic, I went to see him at a clinic at Chuck Levin's music store.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a Zildjian rep there, and somebody introduced me to him. I think he saw me play with Parliament Funkadelic one night, and recognized me and brought me to Lenny. And Lenny was the one that signed me.
That's so great. Yeah, and let's talk about those days too, because like in my mind, there are no days before you were like superstar Dennis Chambers. I've only known you as that, but back in the day, you came up. If I remember right, you started playing really young, right? You were like a kid playing gigs, basically.
Yeah, I started playing drums at the age of 4, and that was because of my mom. My mom was a professional singer, and she would always have these bands at the apartment, either at the apartment or at my grandmother's backyard rehearsing. So every time the drummer would come around, or when they would rehearse, that was the only thing that would keep me still. If it wasn't for that, if it wasn't that, I should say, if it wasn't that, then I was always being Dennis, which is a menace. So, I saw the drums right to this day. I can still see the drum kit. It was a Champagne Sparkle Gretsch kit. It was a 4-piece. Yeah, 4-piece kit. And I don't know if it was the drums, being as shiny or the cymbals that those gold round things, that I remember seeing and, thinking like, man, they look like a spaceship, the rods look like a gigantic or a little spaceship. And, but the sound it had, and it just drew me right to him. And I just kept my eye on the drummer the whole freaking time. And when they would leave, I was also a little shy kid, so I would never say anything to anybody back then. I would just watch and observe, and then pick up some sticks. Oh, I'm sorry, pick up knives and forks and start playing, banging around on things. And eventually, they brought me a drum kit. They brought me this little metal-looking kit. It was a bass drum, and it had like a 2 toms on the opposite ends. And I would just sit there and play that. And then my neighborhood friends destroyed it. And, my parents, they realized I was like acting weird or something. I guess I was depressed because I couldn't play. So they brought me a real kit. My father or my mom, I can't remember who, but they went to this music store called Ted's Music Store right on Center Street here in Baltimore. Ted's Music Store, and it's still there. They went down there and they put a kit together. They took a floor tom, I think it was a 16-inch floor tom, and converted that into a bass drum. And and they constructed the kit from that. Like a 10-inch tom, and they took I think it was a 13-inch floor tom or a 13-inch tom, and made that a floor tom, I believe.
Mhm.
Either that or a 14-inch floor tom. I can't remember. And somehow this got me. It put me on this chair with books or something, you know. And I just started playing drums. I practice, listening to the guys who would come to mom's house, listen to them, and then sit there and try to mimic what they were doing, listening to records, trying to mimic that. And the rest is history. I was like always banging on things. I mean, my father would. I sent my father out to get a metronome once, and he came back with this thing called a trianone. And now the trianone it's a box about like that big, and I still have it, by the way. I got a few of them now, but it's a box about that big, and it's got like these 4 drawer bars, and the drawer bars go from 1 to like 28 or something like that.
Wow.
And you take the first drawer bar on the left hand side, and you take that and take it all the way from 4 all the way up to 28. So, okay, let's say you take that drawer bar and you stick it to like 16. You take the second drawer bar, and that goes from 3 to whatever. So I got 16 against 10, and then I take the third drawer bar, which is 2, from 2 to whatever. So now I got 16 against 10 against 6. The 1 is the accent. So you slide that from 1 to 4, because it's either going to be 1 or you count in every fourth beat you hear a bing.
Mm.
And that taught me how to play polyrhythms, and that taught me how to hear Elvin Jones, basically. So
Wow.
when I first plugged it in, all I heard was like, all this clickety clackety, stuff. And I unplugged it, wrapped it up, stuck it in the closet, and the family was moving to another location, and somebody found either I found it or somebody found the thing in the closet, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's that old this mechanism, supposed to be a metronome that I set my father out for. I plugged it in. As soon as I plugged it in, I heard Elvin.
Wow.
I heard polyrhythms because I was listening to Elvin so much, I couldn't understand what the concept of what he was doing.
Mhm.
I mean, I knew it was polyrhythms, but like how did he do it, or how do you hear these things? As soon as I plugged that thing in, I heard it,
That is incredible.
and it taught me how to like isolate my hand to play certain things, like 16 beats
Mhm.
or 4 to 28, 20
Mhm.
beats. The left hand is the left drawer bar, and I would slide that from, like I said, from 3 to whatever. So I just built all these different ways of how to play polyrhythms. You know,
That that's
splitting,
amazing.
splitting your brain into 4 ways, 4-way independence.
Yeah, absolutely, and I can hear what you're describing right now. I can totally hear it in your playing, just with exactly that, your limb independence. Is that something that's made anymore, that device, or is there a
No,
digital version or anything?
well, Horacio and I came up with an idea, and I'm sorry, we went to a friend of ours who funded it,
Mm.
um, and the app came out, um, and it was kind of successful, but Apple had changed their system software, which causes like, okay, every time they do that, then all the companies that want to sell their product through Apple,
Mhm. You have to update it.
they have to update it, and the updates were expensive.
Man, we have to get well, maybe we can work to get that funded somehow because that's it's like so perfect. And it's funny that you mentioned Horacio because thinking of his like clave and his limb independence and all of that, it's just like it's perfect for that. And
Yeah,
I can hear it. I can hear it working. But that's amazing. So it's called a trinome.
yeah, Trianome. Yeah,
Okay. A lot of people are going to look that up. That's very cool though. And I remember you talking about like practice. People would always ask you about practicing in the clinics. That was a good question. Like, how do you practice and when do you practice? And I do remember you talking about being younger and practicing on pillows,
Hmm.
which is something I used to do also because it's a good way to not annoy parents when you're when you want to play and you can't make a lot of noise. And this was before low volume cymbals and drum heads and all of that stuff. But plus, it also does something where it helps you develop your strength because you are playing on something that's so soft with no rebound. And I just always found that really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, practicing on a surface that has no rebound definitely works for me. And it also worked with Billy Cobham, as I found out later. Uh, and it also worked for a lot of marching drummers,
Hmm.
because it's like, when you strike a surface and there's no rebound, then you have to pull the stick out of it. So it's going to work great, for your wrist or your fingers,
Mm-hmm.
but mainly for the wrist. So when you strike it, you got to pull out. So now you're breaking in muscles a lot faster than normal, than just working on some practice pad. And I always ask people, when you're doing a rudiment, how many people that worked out these rudiments on practice pads, meaning that rubber practice pads at that time,
Mm-hmm.
rubber surfaces, and they work on it, they get it perfected, and then they go back to a drum and they can't play it. And then half the class, half of everybody, or half the room would raise their hand. And I will tell them the reason for that is because a rubber pad is definitely going to be different than a natural drum head. I would ask the students or the people that's in the room, ask them about rudiments, and when they practice on it, or when they work these things out on the practice pad, a rubber surface pad, and then you go back to a natural drum, they fall apart. And the reason for it is because a drum head has a uh, amount of rebound,
Mm-hmm.
will allow your sticks to rebound from. So when you strike it, you get you get some rebound, but not a lot. When you hit a pad with a rubber pad, you hit it and everything jumps in your face almost.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something you have to learn to control.
Right.
But if you're going to work on a drum, you have to learn to control your fingers and your wrist to work with it. But if you work on a pillow that has no rebound, then you have to work your fingers harder, your wrist harder to work with it.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
if you get back to the drums, your hands are moving twice as fast and twice
Right.
as easy. But that worked for me, and I wouldn't necessarily say that works for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard people say, well, I tried that and it didn't work. Okay, well, it didn't work, you know. But
Right.
I find it kind of strange. It works for, like a lot of marching drummers, and it works for guys who have fast hands.
There you go. Yeah. Sometimes you have to stick with it too. It might not be comfortable. That's another thing, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah. But as
but
soon as people get, as soon as people get, uncomfortable, then they want to give up and say it don't work or whatever have you. Just like when I first met Buddy Rich, he was telling me about taking springs off the pedals and stuff like that, and try to play your bass drum without a spring on the pedal. Practice, not on
mm,
just practicing. And at that time, back in them days, you could take a spring off the pedal easily. Now you can't. It's kind of hard
right.
to do.
It's
So
a little more complicated. Did you do that though? Did you
yeah,
do that to work your foot? Yeah.
yeah. And what I learned is, well, first he didn't tell me um, that you have to you can't bury the beater in the head, and he didn't tell me that um, if you feel any pain by doing this, then back away.
Mm,
I didn't learn that until later, until the second time I saw him and asked him about some things. But how this all came about was I saw him playing a gig outdoors here in Baltimore, and the last solo of the night he played, and then all of a sudden the spring popped off or something happened. I saw him look down, and hear that look, you know, he's gritting his teeth, you know, like, and then he took his stick and pulled the beat. Oh, actually, he took his right hand and was playing the bass drum with his right hand, and while he was looking around for the drum tech, and he couldn't find him. You know, he couldn't see him.
Oh
So he
no.
pulls the beater back, and he started feathering eighth notes without any spring on it. And then the further the drum solo went, you know, he started going into like eighth note or quarter notes, eighth notes, and then 16th notes. And before the solo had ended, he was doing 32nd notes, you know, without a spring on the pedal. Now, you could tell all the drummers in the house because everybody rushed the stage and like went, you know, try to get to the side of the stage to see what was going on. And he was basically doing a drum solo, doing 32nd notes without a spring on the pedal. So, and that, yeah, of course, me being a kid caught my eye. I wanted to learn what that was all about. But then I found out, you know, the history of him is that the guy was a great tap dancer. And that's, you know, he had great ankle control. You know, because being a tap dancer, you have to have some serious ankle control.
Absolutely.
And he applied all of that, you know, to the drums.
That's amazing. I love that back in the day, so many drummers were tap dancers or dancers of any form. I remember when I first started expressing how I wanted to play drums when I was really little. And my grandfather, who was a musician and played all the instruments, pretty much everything, he said, you know, if you want to play drums, take tap lessons. And this was something I was interested in too. And I did. I took, I want to say like 7 years of tap dancing, and loved it. And I still love it. But that was always fascinating to me that was a thing. And it makes so much sense because rhythm, and then also, like you said, the muscle control kind of goes together. But there are all these videos from back in the day of like famous musicians and drummers tap dancing.
Yeah.
So great.
Yeah, especially with Buddy. I mean,
yeah.
There's this one where he's dancing with some lady. I forgot the lady's name, but they're doing this routine where she's spinning. They're both spinning, actually. And she's holding a drum as she spins. And Buddy is doing a little drum solo, and somehow he still hit that drum while they're spinning.
Wow. I need to look that one up. That sounds great. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Speaking of drum solos, by the way, you know, you widely known for your drum solos. And I remember seeing a video of you doing a solo. You were on a Santana gig, and you were doing this incredible drum solo, and then it like cuts to Sting is standing there watching you. I don't know where this was taken. It must have been in the 2000s, I would imagine, right? Somewhere in there. And Sting is just standing there, and then at some point, like I think he, you know, like claps or like whistles or something. And I was just like, that is pretty incredible. I mean, just the musicians that you've played with, the musicianship on stage, the people that you've shared the stage with is just incredible, from Santana to Parliament Funkadelic. And, you know, it just kind of like runs the gamut. And I mentioned Mike Stern earlier, but it's just amazing to me. I'm wondering if you ever, like, did you look over and see Sting standing there watching you? Like,
yeah, I knew. See, that day we had discussed no drum solos.
Oh, really?
There was no drum solos, and it was because we were on a festival. You know,
okay.
Roger Waters. I think Sting was on that show. And I think that's the reason why he was there, if I'm not mistaken. But there was a lot of groups on that show that day. So we're right at the top, coming in, playing. I forgot the name of the song now. I can't think of the name of that song. Anyway, so we're playing it, and all of a sudden Carlos turns and he looks at the monitor guy, and he sees Sting standing next to him, and he just turns around and go like, "Drum solo." And you can see I'm shaking my head a little bit, you know, like, no, you know, I thought maybe he forgot. And then you see Raul, the conga player, is pointing make sure that Carl knew that there was a solo. Carl was looking complex because we had discussed no drum solos, and I didn't want to do one that day.
Oh no.
So I came in, like trying to figure out, okay, what am I going to do? Because the whole thing of it, the whole concept of not taking a drum solo is just to play more music. And now that I knew, now that I knew I had to do a drum solo, I had to think of the time restrictions. So I knew I couldn't get too deep into the drum solo. Just do a little something and come out of it. But Sting was standing right there, whistling and clapping. And when I came down off the bandstand, I'm walking towards. I had to go by him to get out of there, and he stopped me and he was asking some questions about us in the past. I did an audition for him a long time ago. I think it was right after Omar.
Oh wow.
And I passed the audition, and something with management went wrong with that whole thing. And then I was doing the Clark Duke video, and he called there, asked me to do an audition for him in LA. And because of what happened in New York with his management, I decided not to take the phone call. And that's when Vinny got out. In fact, it was on a Zildjian day in LA.
Oh wow.
It was right after Pearl died, and I was going to see Louis. I was dying to see him, and to see how he's holding up and all that.
Yeah.
And Vinny came down early, and that's when we found out who got the gig.
Wow. Yeah, I think of Sting as he must just be a huge drum fan because or he has a love for drums because his drummers are always just phenomenal drummers, like tops. So I can understand why you'd want to talk to you about that and have you play with him, of course.
One time I saw him in Montreux. And he was going across the street. He just walking by himself. I couldn't believe it. He was just out there walking across the street, and I saw him. I'm like, that looked like Sting. And I'm like, hey, Sting. No, I said, hey, Gordon. That's what I said. Hey, Gordon. He turns around. He sees me. He runs back over. He gives me this hug. And he was like, man, you're my favorite drummer. I'm like, yeah, well, hire me then.
That's so great. Oh, I'm going to link to that video though of you taking that solo because I love the fact that like you weren't supposed to do a drum solo that night and it was like one of the greatest.
Yeah.
And I have to ask you too, like I think of you, I think of that Zildjian Days performance that I referenced earlier, seeing you play solos from when I was younger and wanting to get into drumming and up until all the things that you do now and the latest thing or the last thing that we did together, which was the Zildjian Live in LA in January of 2020. And when I always picture you taking your solo, I just picture you close your eyes and lean back a little bit and just get into this zone. And I wonder, like, are you thinking about what you're doing or is it just kind of like coming out? How does that happen for you?
Sometimes it happens through melodies. Sometimes it happens through situations that you're dealing with. How you're trying to tell a story in a drum solo. Because I always believe that solos it should be a story. You should always have a beginning, a middle, and an end. But sometimes things happen in the course of a day in your life that inspire you to do certain things, play a certain way. Sometimes you think of of the other drummers, sometimes I think of Vinny, what he's doing with Terry Bozzio, or Marvin Smitty Smith, Watts, or Jack DeJohnette, Lenny White, all the guys that came before me, and think about like, okay, like I'm gonna try to channel my thing, through them, or them through me. Um, it's all kind of weird things that happen when I take solos, and I think it's the same thing with everybody else. Like when you see Coltrane, or when you could see Coltrane, or you watch these videos of Coltrane, or all the genius guys like Alvin and Billy Cobham,
Hmm.
Hart, and those guys. When they take drum solos, it's nothing written out. It's nothing etched in stone. They just go, and whatever hit them at that moment, it's like riding a freaking wave. Sometimes you get on that surfboard and you go out there and you go surfing, and it's a miss, and then sometimes
Hmm.
you get the perfect one and then you go with it. Well, I mean, for me, solos is like that. You know,
I love it.
I think of people, I think of music. Always thinking of music, but I think of certain people who are creating it too. Sometimes I'll hear Alan Holdsworth melody, and I'll go with that. It's like little ear candies that capture your ear. When I
Hmm.
just have people that inspire me to do certain things,
Absolutely.
and by doing it that way, you stay fresh. You know,
Right. Always pulling from new experiences or things happening or other pieces of music. But I love that you're thinking about those who came before you and channeling some of that too. And I want to talk a little bit about those who are coming after you too, because you're always so supportive of the next generation of drummers. You're a huge influence to countless drummers. But not only that, giving them inspiration, but you're also lending your support. And I can't count the number of times that you called me and said, "Hey, you got to check out this new drummer," or "I'm going to hook you up with so and so," and have you heard of, or have you heard their music? And then also not only that, but following up and being a mentor. Like a few of the other guests I've had on this podcast are mentors like that, and I put you right in that same category where you're following up and kind of like helping them navigate the music industry world, which is so incredibly important.
yeah, yeah. I'm a big fan of like some of these younger drummers that are coming up. Like Lee Pearson, who's a phenomenon. I really dig. You know, Little Mike Mitchell is a bad boy. I just talked to him a few nights ago. I think he's in Poland somewhere. Uh,
Wow.
Tony Royster, still is just blazing. Thomas Pritchett is still blazing.
Hmm.
Arnold Bruner is blazing. You know, but the thing that they have to, if they haven't learned by now, the thing they have to learn is just that they got to keep a level head. Through all of their success,
Hmm.
and don't be afraid to help people. Help the next guy who's coming along, because that's what keep it going. You know.
Yeah, absolutely. At the end of the day, we all want this industry to keep thriving and keep being replenished with really great musicians. So it is important.
I've always said, I'm a big fan of the drums more than playing them. I love people who really take the instrument and can think different. Think outside the box. It's just
Hmm.
different. Like a Chris Dave. Who and Steve Jordan. Two important people who take this instrument and just take it somewhere else, take a total different place than anybody else. Terry Bozzio is another one who takes the drums and just take it somewhere else. So, and I'm just good friends with them. I'm just blessed to have them as friends, and I can go and pick their mind. Marvin Smitty Smith, I can always call him and pick his brain. But we do more laughing than anything.
I bet you do.
Both
Yeah.
silly people.
And but you know what? That's like the friendship is also providing inspiration too. So it's so important. This I always say it, but this industry and this part of the industry, like the percussion part of the music industry, there's just so much support of each other, and the friendship goes so deep, and it's just amazing to see how much everyone cares for each other and kind of like pulls each other up. Um, It's inspiring. And then when there's not that, it's noticeable, so you kind of have to remember that this is a small, really small industry where people really know each other, um and it is about support and taking care of each other at the end of the day.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Every now and then, I always pick up. Well, every now and then, I pick up the phone and try to call Gad up, or call Billy, or call somebody just to see how they're doing. Yeah, I mean, because I really care about those guys. Really care about what's going on with them. And seeing what's going on, or see if they need my help, or if I can help them with something, or just to talk to them.
Yeah, see how their families are doing, and
Yeah.
yeah, it's important. That support's amazing. And you've always been there for me too, Dennis, so I have to thank you for that.
You're welcome. We got to find out what the little one's doing.
Yes, exactly. Who knows? Well, thank you so much, Dennis, for your time. I appreciate you. And really thank you for sharing today all of those great stories. I know that, like I said, you're a legend, and you have so many people out there who respect you so much and are just inspired by you every day. So thank you for being out here, for imparting some wisdom. And I cannot wait to see you in person soon.
Same here, Sarah, and thank you for having me today.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Talk to you soon.
Give those kids a kiss for me.
I will.
Give her a kiss on the forehead.
I absolutely will.
All right.
All right. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for tuning in today. Join us each Tuesday for new episodes of Sarah Hagan Backstage.